let's take a look at this clip that Democratic Majority for Israel, the anti-Squad PAC, posted from the demonstration outside the DNC headquarters, where they were like, "This, who would ever associate with people like this?" I'll cue it up in 1 second, but this is from that protest from last night at the DNC.
Oh yeah, basically, sorry.
There were a bunch of primarily Jewish activist groups, pro-Palestinian.
Jewish Voice for Peace, right? Like, yeah.
If Not Now, I believe, was there.
Oh yeah, If Not Now.
Basically, they held a protest in front of the DNC headquarters. Basically, backs turned to the DNC doors, arms linked. And in front of them, like on the grass in front of the DNC, were candles lit for the people who died in Gaza, I assume. And police showed up and removed the protesters, and they were rather violent with them.
Yeah, 90 protesters injured. One protester suffered a concussion from the cops. Police kicked, kneed, and punched nonviolent participants in the vigil. A peaceful protester was hit with bicycles by 2 different cops. I saw a video of a cop getting smacked by another cop who was lifting up a gate. A peaceful protester, I imagine that was probably logged as like a injury caused by the protest. A peaceful protester was choked and violently handled by 3 to 4 officers at once, thrown into a brick wall and onto the ground on top of stairs, then grabbed, picked up and thrown. Yeah, and what we see here is like how this gets translated. This is called by people as a violent protest, but what we actually saw was a cop riot and an immediate escalation into like violence, and we can play some of this now.
Pause it for a second. Pause it really quick. I just want people to really view what's going on here with that video. As you watch this video, you will see cops physically pulling and increasingly getting violent with the protesters. The protesters are resisting by pulling their bodies back, like away from where the cops are trying to pull them. I don't know how else you even classify this as protesters attacking police when they're partaking in civil disobedience that doesn't involve them even touching the police.
Right. And like violent protests when like the Democratic operatives who are attacking these people disgracefully, calling them violent protesters, what they mean is like they didn't immediately give in to the cops when they said, hey, stop protesting.
I mean, that's civil disobedience. People need to be quite clear. Like, this is what civil disobedience is.
Yeah.
Is it against the law? Will people be arrested? Yeah, that's what civil disobedience is, but it doesn't mean they got violent. Blocking a street or blocking a door isn't violent protest. Will they go to get arrested? Well, probably, maybe, but that doesn't mean they were violently assaulting anybody.
Exactly. And so you see like the thing is like, well, somebody will say like this violent protest needs to be condemned. It's like, oh, this wasn't actually a violent protest. And then the question is like, well, did they have a permit? What country are we living in? Like, do we have any pretense to living in a free country at all? What permit did they have for protesting our country's support of ethnic cleansing? They need a permit to go like that question. What permission do they have from the government to do this? How fucking far gone are we?
We've seen these same types of civil disobedience protests against the Trump administration, against Republicans, against people who try to control women's bodies with reproductive rights laws. This is the same thing that just even liberal activists have been taking part in against Republicans over the past couple of years, and they would be hailed as heroes for doing this sort of thing. Yet, because you have peace activists, Jewish peace activists, who dare to stand up for innocent Palestinians, you have them being called violent and how they need a permit. And yeah, it's ludicrous. It's absolutely ludicrous.
shit.
People getting thrown down the stairs. Yo.
Whose footage was that? Do we know?
Well, I don't know who exactly, but this is the DMFI posted.
DMFI posted that and said it was a violent protest. DMFI, of course, basically like a part of the Israel lobby that's sort of more, as AIPAC is more of the conservative, J Street. What's DMFI's relationship to J Street? Is it a branch?
I'm not sure about the relation
Street?
to J Street. It's definitely a subsidiary
The
PAC
progressive.
of AIPAC.
Right. Oh, it is actually related
If
to
I'm not
AIPAC.
mistaken, I'm pretty sure it's the
Anyway, it's apartheid money.
But Matt, if you put this tweet up, this is where it's from, and this is what they said about this clip. Does any real Democrat want to side with those violently assaulting at the Democrats' headquarters?
75%?
These thugs have more in common with at Mark Wayne Mullen, the Oklahoma senator, than with Democrats who won't be bullied into putting Hamas in position to launch more brutal attacks as they promised.
Oh, that's so funny. That
Yeah,
is
really
that's
topical.
what's interesting to see. Like, there's a lot of Democratic partisans that are really trying to. And look, I like to support the Sean Fain stuff going on. Bernie Sanders even against Mark Wayne Mullen and the Teamster stuff going on. And I think that's good. But like, as a way to like not talk about what the Democratic Party is doing with regards to Israel right now. And yeah, and then Brad Sherman. Do we have him on TV?
Yeah.
But
He
I mean,
was-
this lined asshole who, if you look up marijuana bales, he thought that was it North Korea was going to smuggle a nuclear weapon in the United States in a bale of marijuana, which I do appreciate the object for imagination. That's a bale of marijuana. But anyway, here he is on CNN.
Some members
Lying.
of Congress had to be evacuated from the building. California Congressman Brad Sherman posted on X, which is formerly known as Twitter, that he was one of them, and he joins me now. Congressman, thanks for joining me. Can you tell us what happened when you were inside that building?
Well, we were gathered together to meet candidates from all over the country that will be our candidates in swing districts. Our leadership was there, but most of them had left, and there were many others there. We heard the demonstrators outside. They disrupted us a bit, and then we were told we were locked down and would not be allowed to leave. And then the police came in, the Capitol Police, who did an outstanding job, and evacuated us through the basement.
And you said that there were members of leadership there. Which members were there, and did they leave before the protesters turned violent?
Akeem Jeffries, Catherine Clark, and Pete Aguilar, our three top leaders, were all there. Of course, Susan Del Buene, the head of the DCCC, also one of our top leaders, was there at the when the evacuation took place.
We know that there were some arrests and the area is now open again. And Senator Schumer says there's going to be a vote tonight on the stopgap spending bill. How were you able to get out? And were you concerned at all for your safety as this was all going on?
I've been doing this for 27 years. I don't get that concerned. Some other of my colleagues were much more concerned. We were evacuated in police vehicles to the Capitol and then went home from there. The one point I want to make is yesterday there were over 200,000 pro-Israel demonstrators with a permit, entirely peaceful. And here you have a demonstration less than 1,000th as large that's also getting publicity. And it's getting publicity because their willingness to attack police, as they did with pepper spray, is a force multiplier. A few demonstrators willing to attack police getting a fair amount of publicity, whereas the amount of publicity for 200,000 peaceful demonstrators proportionately less.
And I just want to make a note here that we don't know exactly who was responsible for the pepper spray, but as we continue to report on this story, we'll learn more. Congressman Brad Sherman, I do thank you for joining us tonight.
I mean, we do know who's
believe the
responsible for the
Capitol
pepper spray
Police.
because there's tons of photos, evidence out there now that distinctly show police were spraying pepper spray. I mean, it should be a question who sprayed the pepper spray because police are the ones who bring pepper spray. We've seen the
like who's
photos
bombing the
of
hospitals.
Police pepper spraying. If police are hit with pepper spray, it's because their own officers have bad aim and shot it and it's blowback, or it directly hit them. That's why there's been no photos or videos of protesters with pepper spray, period. And then number two, the bringing up the permitted. First of all, it's been debunked about how many people were attended that the March for Israel protest. It wasn't 200,000 people.
Your eyes can debunk that.
It was less than 100,000 based on the photos. I've seen some people say 30,000 to 60,000 is the estimation.
Remember the existential panic that was caused when Trump misled everyone about the size of his crowd, despite the obvious, documentary evidence showing he's to be lying?
Right. I mean, also, if you look at the two photos of Trump's inauguration and the March for Israel side by side, Trump also had a larger audience. But
probably a lot of
anyway,
crossover.
right. But anyway, the reason that the March for Israel went so swell is because exactly that. It was completely condoned by the U.S. government, various members of U.S. Congress who not only showed up but had speaking roles. It was literally a pro the pro status quo march.
Literally,
of course
the president of Israel was there.
Yeah.
Of course you're not going to be violent. They're not going to be violent. They're getting exactly what they want. No ceasefire. You have literally far right pastor who's said anti-Semitic and Islamophobic things previously as one of the speakers. He's getting exactly what he wants. I've seen video footage of I think Medea Benjamin was there just holding up a sign for ceasefire.
Yep.
And you had attendees at this rally yelling that they wish Hamas raped her and burnt her and killed her and all these sorts of things. I mean, this is literally, it was a rally for the status quo. Of course, they're not going to be met with any blowback. Everything's going to be peaceful because there's no one attacking them.
Oh, wow. Paul Blessed. This is the first time I've seen significant media attention on Brad Sherman since a bunch of his staffers told a McClatchy reporter that his office was too toxic to report sexual harassment without fear of retaliation.
Yeah, he anecdotally in a lot of these surveys about the best and worst bosses on the Capitol Hill, he has consistently over his 27-year career been considered one of the worst people to work for on Capitol Hill. He's apparently has a huge anger problem and is very, very difficult to work for.
Fear and yelling in L.A. Congressman's office led to silence on harassment, aides say. Los Angeles area Congressman Brad Sherman says nothing of his staff ever complained about blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so big time piece of crap. 8 former aides said the environment in Sherman's D.C. and California offices was so toxic it was laughable to think of junior staff would have felt comfortable raising concerns about harassment or anything else.
And just to look at his tweets here for 1 second. So he initially obviously said the things where he was like, which Dave Weigel at Semaphore, who was at this
right. I forgot to mention Dave Weigel's been out there. Yeah,
he refuted this. So Sherman says here was just evacuated from the #DNC after pro-terrorist anti-Israel protesters grew violent.
But let's stop for a second there too. Look how he even classifies the protest:
pro-terrorist anti-Israel.
Pro-terrorist anti-Israel. I mean, come on.
And so he said, grew violent, pepper spraying police officers and attempting to break into the building, which Weigel refutes. Thankful to the police officers who stopped them and for helping me and my colleagues get out safely. In the next tweet, apparently these pro-Hamas demonstrators want Republicans to prevail in the next congressional election. It's still a vote shame after all.
Wow. Well, I mean, they don't want to describe them as Jewish students because they really have to do the work of like painting Israel as the one path towards supporting Jewish people domestically and abroad. So if you paint them as like if what they are, which is if not now, and Jewish Voices for Peace, it conjures a different image than saying pro-terrorist organizers, because then you just picture like Arab people if you're a racist.
Right. I mean, it's quite clear that a lot of the people who are speaking out against what's going on right now in terms of a lot of people are speaking out against the protests demanding a ceasefire and such a lot of these same politicians rarely stand with any other progressive cause. Sherman's not exactly someone who's been out there as a staunch defender of. Yeah. So, I mean, people need to realize when they're looking at this, and maybe they're not so a leftist or whatever, they should look at this and see who exactly is saying these things and where they stand on the issues you care about. And then maybe you could reevaluate your position on why so many of these people who are so adamantly anti the pro-Palestine cause don't care about any of the things that you care about.